Salvete mihi nomen est, Stella, ad hoc est Batgirl the Oracle, the Barbara Gordon podcast, episode 261 for June MMXXV. Batgirl the Oracle is brought to you by MileHighComics.com, your new and collectible comic book store. Mile High Comics has an inventory of over 5 million comics from the gold, silver, bronze, and modern age, and over 100,000 trade paperbacks. If you're not into the vintage stock, Mile High Comics also has a subscription service called the New Issue Comics Express, offering a discounted price for comics ready to hit the shelves. So, if you're looking for vintage back issues or a great modern subscription service, be sure to check out milehighcomics.com. Well, we are here now at the heat of summer, and I know the bad joke is that it's so hot. I suppose we're just being prepared for a nuclear war, so that we won't know the difference. But per usual, I'll try to keep things light since things outside the world of Batgirl the Oracle pretty heavy right now. So hopefully you can still find your joy as you are listening or watching here. I will say that it has been fun getting prepared for this workshop that I'm going to do in a couple weeks. I'm going to Dickinson College to translate book four of Virgil's Georgics, and I've been working on that on my own in preparation for that. And this is all about the bees. If you know anything about Virgil, he does love bees, and bees pop up in the Aeneid a couple times. And so it's fun to see this just because he is just Virgil. Yeah, he's definitely one of my Latin boyfriends. And the Aeneid is definitely not what he wanted to, the type of the genre that he would have wanted to write is not that, but the Georgics is definitely it. And just being able to see him and his love for pastoral poetry and talking about bees and what they get up to is really interesting. And actually today I chuckled to myself because there were a couple lines that definitely were used in the Aeneid. And we're told that plagiarism is bad, even self-plagiarism is bad. And here, my beloved Virgil is self-plagiarizing. So that's kind of what I've been up to. I feel like I have not really gotten to start my summer break yet. I've still been going to school a couple times. I like to kind of prep for curriculum for the next year, and I can't exactly do that yet without having known my schedule. So I'll have to wait until that comes out and come in, I guess, in July, maybe a day. But I have gone in and got a small grant to work with my trip husband that I went on the Greece trip with and kind of retool or reinvent or revitalize. I mean, all these re words, the Latin trip and beef it up a little bit, make it more equal in value at the very least to the other trips as well as length. And so currently going to be kind of sticking in Italy and go back and forth between northern and southern Italy, but then have a home base in Orvieto where for a week we'll do some coursework and it'll have some sort of theme and we'll do different readings, primary and secondary sources, I think, and look at art as well, art history and culture. So that's what we're thinking so far. So we planned out a proposal and everything. So feels good to have that, though finding, you need to find lodging, but I think we know what we're doing, either staying at a convent or a monastery and then go from there. So that's what I've been doing so far. So it just feels like I've not really been able to do it, prepping for this workshop. So it's just like, well, I'm still working here. So at one point, maybe my summer vacation will start. I will say I'm excited to do Stella's Dungeon of Smut because I've read some things, and one thing in particular that I'm dying to talk to you all about. I really wish that I knew someone that was actually reading it or has read it so I could talk more in depth, but just stay tuned for that. But I think that's all I have so that we can just get started with what I'm doing today. And I am doing a vintage arc again. So look at that, 2 months in a row. And we're going to be talking some birds of prey. And this is the big calculator arc. This is, I see as the one that really put calculator as on the map as being Barbara as Oracle, her nemesis, her arch nemesis. And so we're going to see this and some status quo change by the end of it. And we've got some bat jerk as well. So just get ready for that. So let's start. We're starting with Birds of Prey 87, Perfect Pitch Part 1, cover date December 2005. Writers Gail Simone, pencilers Joe Bennett and Eddie Barrows, inkers Jack Jadson, Robin Riggs, colorist Hi-Fi Designs. And this synopsis comes from the DC Wikia. Huntress continues her efforts against the mob, this time with the help of Creote and Black Canary. In the meantime, the calculator is setting agents from the Society of Supervillains against the Birds of Prey because he sees Oracle as a threat. After Barbara Gordon's surgery to remove Brainiac's hardware, she learns she can move her toes. Dr. Midnight tells her that is the most she will ever feel in her legs and feet again. She's actually okay with this and perhaps even more okay with that. Black Canary finally calls Green Arrow. So those are all the big things we do. So if we're to start at the beginning with the particular cover, hashtag Carolyn knows, because of course we have just a head of Barbara Gordon, but I think we can give some grace and leeway to this cover since we also just have the head of Huntress and Dinah as well. And of course we have the calculator. I like this setup. I like how it's organized, like how they're on Rubik's cubes, because we actually see calculator doing 2 Rubik's cubes at a time. Really throughout the arc, I kind of saw him mess with them a couple times. So it's definitely one heck of an opening, I would say, with Calculator. And as the issue continues, we also have Lex Luthor and appearing, and then we have Calculator's roster. And so I think one would have all the right to worry about what is about to happen. So he's not just your average C-list villain, but he's someone that has a lot of power behind him. I like how positive the emotions of the team are now. Everyone seems to be in a good place emotionally, and they are working well together. So I think this shows. Obviously, this is hard because I've not done an arc of Birds of Prey for several months. And if you think about, comics and reading month to month and just being continually there's this flow that you're just reading through it. You can see that, and it's someone's actual emotional journey, and you have conflict between you have it resolved, and then you move on. So it's hard because it's like stop and go for me. But I'm liking what era we are in currently, and I can appreciate the struggles, the frustrations, and the conflict that came before to set up this particular era. It's funny how Dinah makes jokes about not following Barbara's orders in the field like old times. And this is something that she does in the modern tales as well. So there's a good balance there. Donna is also more open now with the team, and she actually says Shiva is training her, so this isn't a secret anymore. And she mentions that Shiva is her nutritionist as well. And frankly, I would like to see what a Lady Shiva diet looks like. And I assume that she's eating really clean. Wonder if it's paleo. Wonder if she's vegan or vegetarian. It'd be really interesting to know. Everyone also notes that Barbara is really different too, and Dr. Midnight misinterprets this. But once Barbara explains that even such a little thing as being able to wiggle her toes is a blessing, he understands. So everyone kind of sees that that burden has finally been lifted off of Barbara. I think Dr. Midnight initially thinks that just because you can wiggle your toes, you're thinking that you'll be able to do other stuff, but she's just happy for a little bit of her mobility back, which I think is great. And I think that this is understandable in the real world as well. We also are seeing the aftermath of Wonder Woman killing Maxwell Lord in the background. on a TV. So we're definitely still in universe and still pushing or making our way towards Infinite Crisis. So a good setup issue, um, giving us an idea of what the emotional state is of the players, and also showing us that calculator is a threat that we should take seriously. And a bit of a cliffhanger, I would say, given that Dinah and Oliver's relationship at that point has not been the best. It's been pretty hard. So to have them end, or to have really Simone end it like that, I think is really interesting. So then we'll move on to Birds of Prey 88. This is Perfect Pitch Part 2. January 2006 is the cover date. Writer Gail Simone. Pencilers Joe Bennett and Eddie Barrows. Inkers Jack Jadson and Robin Biggs. And colorist Hi-Fi Design. Calculator's goons have captured Savant and begin torturing him. Black Canary meets up with Green Arrow to take down some Varric mob members. This is all furthering Helena's plan. Helena Bertinelli goes to a meeting with the crime syndicate and is made capo. And of course, it takes a while for them to do that because she is a woman. Starting with our cover. Again, these covers are just hitting it out of the park, I would say. So we've got Oracle's green mask with the green, really a screen background, it seems, but the subtitle is, shattered and something is breaking up that mask. So kind of getting this sense of, oh, is something bad going to happen? So one of her agents is down and we'll see if he can withstand the torture. At first, I was unsure why Ollie had to be in this issue, but given the Justice League of America threat that the Huntress makes, one of the ways that she's able to be made capo, as well as the location of the other mob being in Star City, I do suppose, it makes sense when it comes down to it. But ultimately, I think that the main reason Ollie is there is for Dinah to have emotional closure. I mean, we started off the Birds of Prey way back when with those little one shots and four shots and three shots with Chuck Dixon, that she had really just gone through a breakup and had been in a bad place. And as I said, everyone is more or less in a pretty good emotional stability. And so here we're showing this too. We're showing her maturity to talk to and kind of iron out the last issues that she has with Ollie. I was either unaware or forgot that Ollie had cheated on her. And I will say that I reached out to the Sutherlands, Ruth and Darren, and asked, because they're kind of the ones that I would say are the Green Arrow experts as I know them. And Darren said, I'm guessing that's referring to Shadow, who is a quasi nemesis and love interest for Oliver. He was always attracted to her, but I would say he didn't cheat by choice. Shadow nursed him back to health after he was shot by an arrow. While he was delirious with fever, Shadow took advantage of him and became pregnant, so the two of them have a daughter together named Emiko. Potentially that's the one Darren said that he remembered most vividly from Mike Grell's run. It's interesting that got another hero that is a victim of sexual assault, and I wonder how that was dealt with. That also is suspiciously similar to Batman and Talia, because wasn't he kind of out of it too? But anyways, if that's what we were talking about, that's not what I had. I did not know that Ollie had cheated on her. And when I Googled, with whom did Ollie have an affair with? Of course, Arrow pops up. And I know that Oliver Queen was cheating on Laurel with her sister at the same time and lots of other things. But yeah, so that was new. So anyways, I do like Barbara, obviously, and her positive attitude during a series of unfortunate events. A lift to a ride that she had broke, it was raining and a lift up the stairs got messed up. She even let somebody push her. So clearly there's a big change going on for her. Though when I saw that person who said, can I help you or may I help you? And she hesitated because she was going to say, and she did start saying no. It did remind me of, I wonder if I had shared this story before. It reminded when I was working as a rehab tech, there was someone that I went often I would go into rooms and set up for the physical therapist or occupational therapist, just check that they had the materials and things that they needed. And one room I went in there and someone who was in a wheelchair was in the bathroom with their IV and they were starting to exit and I was going to help them and get the IV out of the way. And the person stopped me and said, no, I like to do this on my own. And I was like, fair enough. And I apologized. And so I hesitate now, especially because there are a couple people at work with mobility challenges. I hesitate with doing things like automatically for them because I know both of them like to still have that agency and still do things on their own and they are not incapable of doing things, but then I also know it's hard for them to ask, so it's like it's a tricky position to be able to be respectful. But I think if all I'm like trying to be better about asking and saying like, would you like help with this? And that way, they can turn me down if they don't need it, rather than standing there and not doing anything. Um, so yeah, I I felt I needed to explain it to both of them because there had been times that I kind of just stood there when things like they were trying to go to the bathroom or something like that. It's like, this is why I do that. So we're at least at an understanding. But just to say, don't, it's always nice to ask first, I think, instead of doing, because that way you give the other person the option. So there's a small lesson from Stella. I really like the mall scene. I found it really fun. You've got Huntress speaking truth about teacher salaries. Dinah, out of embarrassment, perhaps buys several of her own toys. I think embarrassment because of the particular outfit that was modeled on the action figures. Dinah ribs Barbara about having a weapons purse in the past because, that would have been on her action figure if that was there. And then a slew of nerds either hit on or ask questions of Barbara, and later on, Dinah sings about it, a la the Carpenters. So just a really fun scene of the three women getting along and on a day off to a certain extent, which was great. Oh, and Huntress also finding out that she can have like I don't know, a subsidy, a side. She should be getting some cash basically for working for the Birds of Prey, which is great. Huntress is definitely a badass at the mob meeting and how she becomes capo. And these guys are, I think they're all in towels at the very end because they're kind of at like a bathhouse and they're all, I don't know, they're foreboding. Also, they all look the same for some reason. See them there. And she's like not backing down and making threats, and she gets what she wants. So I appreciate that as well. Savant, he's holding up under torture, is going to go on for a couple days now. So we'll get back with him in the next issue. And I will say that the idea of this whole thing is that with that mob under control, and the other weaker mobs under control of that mob, Barbara's thinking that kind of the mob situation in Gotham is going to be done, and I guess Metropolis as well. And I thought, ooh, doesn't this plan sound a little bit familiar? Cough, cough, war games. So have we not learned? Let me see. I can find it. Yeah, if this mob thing works, if we destroy organized crime in Gotham, could I actually quit being Oracle? Wow. The issue is, yeah, that come on, war games, but also the fact that she's thinking about it, I think is really interesting because, of course, it's not something that Batman thinks about. I think the people who maybe are the healthiest are the ones that are thinking like this will come to an end at some point. And so to have Barbara had that consideration um, is quite interesting. And then you also wonder who would do what she's doing if she were not there. Someone has to, I think, fill that void. And I because with Calculator, I think you find out that if there is a void, then you would have someone like Calculator fill it in a bad way. So she is more needed, I think, than some people realize for sure. I think she's underestimated, but she is perhaps one of the most important members in DC. um, I say that biasly and objectively. So let's move on to Birds of Prey 89, Perfect Pitch, Part 3, February 2006 is the cover date. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Paolo Siqueira, inker Robin Riggs, and colorist Hi-Fi Design. I believe this was the issue that, I think it's this one with the art change that no, I guess it's the next one. There was an art change. It's the same person. Yeah, the shift. I just didn't like some of the faces that were going on. So I will say that. Yeah, especially Creote when you get to the next issue. The cover's not as interesting. We have Hellhound and Black Spider and someone chained up, which we can assume is Savant. Poor guy. Send in the hounds, as they say. After 2 days of torture, Savant still has not given up Oracle. Meanwhile, Barbara Gordon takes her father, James Gordon, to her secret headquarters and reveals to him that she is Oracle. Then she tells him that she was also Batgirl. Her dad reveals that he knew about Barbara being Batgirl. Creo calls Barbara and tells her that Savant has been abducted. Barbara calls in Black Canary and Huntress to obviously go and rescue him. Creote, Black Canary, and Huntress break into the facility and free Savant. Deathstroke awaits atop a nearby building, ready to kill the birds, Creote and Savant, when Calculator gives him the word. Savant tosses one of his captors, Black Spider, out a window, seemingly to his death. And I will say he was kind of in a fugue state because Dino was trying to talk him down, saying, we're not this way, don't do it. Hellhound makes a good point that because Creote cannot recognize time, which makes one wonder how he even knows how to meet someone, for instance, or go on a date, he doesn't know how long he has been tortured. So that was something that I didn't think of. So even though it has been several days, he thinks it might have been a couple hours, but the body, I would assume, would be the thing to kind of tell you, oh yeah, this has been going on for a while. But it could be the opposite too. It could feel like it's been going on for months. Calculator tinkering with a love slash hate epistle to his rival Oracle is both silly as well as realistic. I think this is well something that Scott Snyder played with a lot with Batman and Joker, that it's kind of like this sick love affair. And so I think there's like this duality here, and we see that in that letter that he is writing. So Barbara reveals she is Oracle to her father in this issue, which is big, as well as her past as Batgirl. But he already knew, and so this kind of goes back and forth in continuity whether this is true or not. So at this time, this is the fact. It is a nice moment overall. I love any sort of Barbara and Jim moment, but we have to rehash the Killing Joke again for some reason. We have to see some of those panels. I do wonder what your thoughts are, listeners, on her potentially stopping or at least asking, do you need me to stop? When Jim feels uncomfortable, right? So, what are your thoughts on you perhaps going through a trauma and you're talking to someone about that trauma that's close to you and they're visibly upset? Do you stop because of their feelings and that maybe they can't hear it, or do you keep going? I can see both sides. Like initially I thought it's very kind of her, but also like these things were happening to her. So if she needs to work through it and talk to you about it, I feel like she shouldn't stop. But I also know that he went through it as well in the Killing Joke. And so for him to hear her perspective, as well as being his daughter, I know it was really hard. And Barbara's not a jerk. She has been a couple times, but at this point, she's not a jerk and wants to spare his feelings too. But I just wonder, what your thoughts are on that. And that's actually something that I brought up with my Latin 1 students because we were translating her text series is Superani, which is I like it, except I mean, no textbook series is perfect. Some of the grammar I would reorganize. There is we kind of focus on certain characters, so you get attached to them. And one of the characters bets a lot on races and things like that, and he gets into a debt with a senator, and he either has to pay back the senator or he has to sell his daughter to him as a slave, to basically take on that debt. And so he does not want to do that and ends up secretly sending his daughter on a boat elsewhere. And as she is leaving, with her aunt and kind of the family slave, her aunt, or I guess is really her father's slave, her Sabina's crying. That's the daughter, and the slave is crying, but the aunt is showing no emotion, and like the translation, the image shows that, and then the translation is saying that as well. And I was telling my students, like, sometimes it is harder for situations, for the people going through it, to show that emotion because the other person is really the one that is going through that particular event. And so to be crying, like your tears aren't necessarily going to help. And so it's sometimes like selfish even to be crying. That kind of stuff is happening. So, I was talking to them about that. So this kind of reminds me of that. I think it's a complicated scene. I just found it very interesting that, he turned away, he's visibly upset, and she's like, "Do you need me to stop?" But I think it was good for her to keep going, and I'm glad that he allowed her to, and he persevered through that. She mentions that she learned how to fight with honor and with a code from him. So, a lot of beautiful things coming out of this issue. I do think it's realistic that Barbara and Dinah have not fully committed to Savant, even if appearances to the contrary, like that party where he was, invited. So she does say that, and Dinah does as well. So that's good. I think this is for a good reason. So Savant actually snaps, as I said, he kind of enters the state and potentially kills Black Spider. I mean, that was his intent, was to kill him. So it's kind of like Daredevil season 3 when he just threw Bullseye over. He intended to kill him. It's just the fall did not kill him. So luckily, Savant's not a murderer this time. Though it might be hypocritical if he doesn't get a second chance because Huntress has gotten so many second chances. So even though she recognizes, like, oh, yeah, the code makes sense, the code is there for a reason, she's broken the code several times and she's been given many chances. So hopefully Savant gets that, even though, like I said, there's a status quo change at the end. I like that Oracle's quote unquote thing is giving the info on the perps and their skills and weapons, kind of like a baseball card. So when Dinah says, "Do your thing," this is what her thing is. I don't know why Barbara clicks on that icon on the letter. Has she not learned about, or it wasn't on the letter, it was on the map. I mean, has she not learned about phishing scams and phishing schemes? There's so many, I shouldn't say there's so many, but we get emails. I've gotten test emails before from organizations to be sure that I passed. The school definitely has things like that, and you have to send them right away to computer/IT. So, Barbara, why are you clicking on unknown things like that? And then Bat Jerk appears. So, He just can't stay away, can he? And he makes his threats and he says, I warned you to stay out of Gotham. And, Jim is angry at this tone. Barbara's like, it's okay, Dad. He's like this. But she's not taking his crap anymore. And I appreciate that. And as we end, Deathstroke is in the game. So things have certainly escalated because we go from Hellhound and Black Spider to Deathstroke. So that's definitely stepping up, jumping up a couple levels for sure. And now we end with Birds of Prey 90, Pitch Perfect, Part 4. March 2006 is the cover date. Writer Gail Simone, penciler Paulo Siqueira and Adam DeCracker. Hopefully it's Adam DeCracker. Inker Robin Riggs and Hi-Fi Design is the colorist. Batman appears at Barbara Gordon's place of business and tells her that Huntress is not telling her everything about the mob operation and that it should be shut down immediately. Deathstroke attacks the birds. Savant shoots him and Deathstroke falls off the building. Savant tells Huntress to tell Oracle that he quits. Huntress and Black Canary meet with Batman, and Huntress turns over a book full of information about the mob. Batman tells her, she did a good job, and then he leaves. And I will say somebody kisses somebody in that scene, which we'll go through as well. So beginning with this cover, I like this cover. Just two people, but it shows a lot. You've got Deathstroke, you've got Dinah going after each other. And remember, Dinah, and it looks like Adriana Mello and Will Conrad. Remember that Dinah has stepped up her training game. So it's not like in the past, which we'll even see, she will mention. So throughout the story, Calculator keeps talking about how he has a compulsive disorder. And I wonder if, besides the fact that he is a villain, if others with OCD perhaps would consider this good representation. We really see in this story how dangerous an adversary he is for Oracle, as well as being someone who operates in a similar manner as she does and has a whole villainous roster in his Rolodex. So I think it's somebody that we are always going to have to keep on the lookout for and just keep watching, which is why in modern tales, I'm constantly thinking, oh, is this Calculator? Because I feel like he's just not been used in the modern times, but I could be wrong. So the Deathstroke fight is as intense as one would expect, and Dinah is looking for payback after the fight in Identity Crisis. I know that it's Identity Crisis. Image wise, like I said, just the art shifts in these past two issues, and this one really, I think, took a turn. I looking at the panels, it's like, I mean, all the characters are there, but it would have been hard for me to figure out that was what was being referenced. But that is one of my favorite scenes in Identity Crisis, just because how he is able to take down all of the Justice League members quite easily with very little effort. So she's definitely looking for payback. She takes one for the team and having her arm broken, which is very violent. And after having two leg breaks, you got another appendage down. But she's, got a plan. So I appreciate that she is thinking strategically. Zinda shows a more active role here. And I will say that it was at this point when I was writing that on my notes that I wondered, I guess, what the point of Zinda is beyond her being the pilot, because she doesn't participate as much in missions. I just feel like the field agents are Huntress and Dinah, and Zinda's just like the driver. So I hope that changes, but it was nice to see her do something for a couple panels here. Savant ends up saving Zinda, and then he says that he has cleared his debt with Barbara, so he quits. And Zinda is also then made aware that Creote is gay because he showed up naked, I think, that one time at the door, and she was hooked right then. So she was bummed out that he's gay. Hashtag Pride Month. I forgot. Yes, there we go. So I mean, as is his right with Savant, I wonder why this was the thing that pushed it over. Um, I can only guess. I think immediately one would say, well, he was tortured for several days. Um, but I feel like probably gone through way more than that. And I thought that he had become close with the team. Again, he was invited to a party. I feel like it would, I don't know. Creote, I could see because of what happened with Savant that he would want to leave, but he's not going to leave unless Savant leaves. But maybe the code pushed him over the edge. I don't know. I mean, he held the secret, like he didn't reveal who Oracle was. So I guess I do wonder why this is the thing that pushes him over and says, like, hey, we're even now, I'm done. So perhaps my questions will be answered later on, but it does seem sudden, and I am unsure what his motivations are. So Batman, yep, he shows his true jerk colors in front of Jim, and he goes after Huntress. Huntress isn't there, so he goes after Huntress to Barbara, but Barbara stands by her team. I like the line that Batman trained Barbara to be hard, but her father trained her to be human, which I think is 100% correct. At one point, she says, "Thanks for stopping by." And then Batman says, yeah, that if the mob plan isn't shut down, he will retire all of them. And it sounds like a bodily threat that they're going to get killed. But I guess he would, I don't know, destroy their watchtower somehow and the plane and not allow them to do it. But even if he did all of that, I think that they would still probably be going, operating. And also, I think if heroes got wind of that, that people would turn against Batman. So I think that that would be a bad idea. And then the unthinkable happens, people. He was wrong and he was outdone. No blood was spilled, and Huntress actually retrieved a lot of intel that even Batman couldn't. There's smiles all around, and Batchirk actually tells her that it was outstanding work. Will wonders never cease. And then, in a scene which made me say "ew" out loud, Dinah kisses Batman. Potentially because he seems lonely, potentially because everyone has probably always wanted to do it but was too scared to. These are things that are said in the issue. It felt like a vampire. I think with what was her description? Um, a bit like Frenching Dracula, only with less saliva. So you're telling me that wasn't just a smooch, but it was open mouth, and she darted her tongue in there. And yes, also like kissing your principal while on detention or in detention. So interesting descriptors of that. But if that was a kiss that I had, there wouldn't be any going back. But anyways, I think it will be seared on my brain like that particular scene in Friends. I actually reached out to Gail Simone via X/Twitter and, asked about that particular scene and just if there wondered if there was a story behind that of how she got the idea. And she said Dinah is one of the very few leaguers who isn't intimidated by Batman on some small level. She digs effing with him sometimes. So there you go. From the mouth of the creator, which is lovely. So overall, I think that this was a great arc with a lot of emotional healing and growth for all the characters, with the exception of Zinda. Like I said, hopefully she has more of a purpose going on. Maybe I'm misreading her and missing something. I'd love for someone to pipe in and tell me about Zinda. Perhaps it's in the next 20 issues, I'll see something. We got to see a foe worthy of Oracle, which I think is great and interesting and new. And I mean, when you stick it to Batman, that is a win in my book. So I think that I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10 birds. I think that I had one listener email, which really comes from the YouTube. And the comment is from the YouTube, the episode 260 from Donovan, just saying that he really liked the art for both issues that particular month. So, yes, remember, you can always write in backrolloracle@gmail.com if you would like. Yeah, I think as the show is starting to end, people are falling off. They're probably like, man, you're still going 15 years later? I am. I am. But it's getting close there. It's getting close. Okay. Well, when I come back, I will be covering Batgirl Volume 6. Uh-oh. Which issue it was? Batgirl Volume 6, number 8, and Birds of Prey Volume 5, number 22. But first, we have Zaius's Radio Hour featuring Zombie by Youngblood. See you soon.